Hello and welcome to Motown Sentimeter. It's been a rollercoaster ride for the Indian auto industry in 2024, from facing the brunt of consumers deciding to postpone their buying decisions to feeling the heat of extreme weather conditions and its impact on rural demand to drive towards a more eco-friendly car culture. It's a year that the Indian automobile industry may want to forget soon. However, there were some silver linings as well. The SUV segment and the electric vehicle space provided some relief. So what are we to conclude? That Indians aren't holding back when it comes to luxury cars or eco-friendly vehicles? What is the outlook for the auto sector in the year 2025? Joining us right now is the former president of the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers and the current MD and CEO of Volvo Eicher Commercial Vehicles, Mr. Vinod Aggarwal. We're also joined by Sai Giridhar, the Vice President of the Federation of Automobile Dealers Association. But Mr. Aggarwal, thank you so much for joining us. Let me begin by asking you about commercial vehicles. Often, the truck sales in the country are said to be the barometer of the health of the economy. How do you see the commercial vehicle segment doing so far? We've seen a decline in sales of about 6% if we speak about the month of November. How do you think the full FY25 will be for the commercial vehicle sector? You're on mute, sir.
First of all, if you look at the overall commercial vehicles till November, the industry has not done as well as we had expected. We had expected that the industry will grow this year, but as of now, it is down by around 2 to 3% YTD basis, first 8 months. And if you analyze it further, the growth also has come largely based on growth in buses. Buses have grown by 20%, whereas the heavy-duty trucks have dropped by around 8%. Light and medium-duty trucks have dropped by around 5%, and small commercial vehicles also have dropped by around 2 to 3%. So buses have led this entire recovery in the industry, and based on that high growth, overall still there is a drop. However, there is another cut. If you look at the tonnage wise, even though the heavy duty trucks, last year it was 257,000 as against earlier peak of 295,000. Now, if you convert these numbers into tonnage, metric tons wise, it was in 18-19, it was around 9.7 million tons of payload of 295,000. This year or last year, 257,000, it will be around 10 million tons. So therefore, tonnage wise, there is growth because there is a lot of migration that we have seen into high tonnage trucks, like in the tractors or tippers, which are the high capacity trucks. So therefore, I will not say that there is a much concern. There are some specific reasons why the industry has been a bit of muted this year. However, going forward, we are very positive because there are some specific fundamental factors that will continue to lead the growth in the overall commercial vehicle industry. And foremost factor is the continuing investment in infrastructure. Our economy is growing, even though the growth rate has a little bit come down. But still we are expecting next year also the growth of around 6 to 7%. Then the replacement demand is going to remain very, very strong. So based on these fundamental factors, we are expecting that the industry, first of all, this year, balance 4 months are likely to be much better, whatever we have seen in first 8 months, because first 8 months, government's investment in infrastructure were not as strong as it should have been. However, they are going to make up in the balance 4 months. So we will see a lot more activity coming in the economy, especially in the infrastructure investment, because the government capex budget now full year was very high.
Okay,
and till now it is very less.
Okay, so now if we were to ask you about the union budget, sir, what can the budget do? You said that the government's capex spend is going to pick up in the last 4 months of this fiscal. Having said that, what kind of a capex push or measures that you are hoping for, which could give an impetus to the commercial vehicle industry?
I think first of all, if we look at the government finances, I think government finances, they are doing better. So they have the capacity to invest because the tax collections are all right. We are getting very handsome collections every month of GST. Even the direct tax collections, advanced tax collections, there has been good growth. Whatever figures I saw in the last advanced tax collections. And of course, the fiscal deficit is likely to remain under control. Therefore, government will have good capacity to continue to invest. So we will expect that even next year also, government should continue to invest in the infrastructure. There is still a lot more to be done in infrastructure. And if you look at our other core industries, which are going to lead the overall economy, like for example, if you take coal, or if you take steel, or if you take cement, all these three sectors are likely to grow very well next year. Coal is already, this year coal production has crossed 1 billion tons. That's what it is, 1 billion metric ton. We are expecting that the coal production will be more than 1 billion. And next year, we are expecting at least 10% growth in this because more and more mines are also opening up. Even the cement and steel, if you look at the plans of the companies, there are a lot more expansion plans which have been announced by the cement and steel companies because with the investments in infrastructure and real estate, housing sector, you will see these core sectors growing. And when the core sectors grow, that also leads to the growth in the commercial vehicle industry.
Okay. So what I'd also like to ask you is about the electric commercial vehicle space, especially electric trucks, electric buses. Now, we saw a lot of schemes being announced by the government this year. One was the PM e-drive scheme. Now, within that, you have electric buses, which have been covered in a big way. You've got electric trucks, ambulances, which are covered. You've got the payment security mechanism, which was announced separately. But we also hear that the operational guidelines for some of the aspects of these schemes are yet to be released. Do you think that is currently slowing down the offtake in the electric commercial vehicle space? Do you think things could be much faster if these guidelines and rules would be out?
But if you look at what all has happened, I think a lot more has happened because we have now the payment security mechanism in place. And government also has, I think, made some of the earlier conditions they have removed. Like earlier, it was mandatory that all the operating companies for the buses, the OEM has to have some stake in the operating companies. As per the new conditions, I think that has been removed. So that's a big relief to the OEMs. So now OEMs have to supply the buses and they have to maintain the buses. Not that they should own the operating company either partly or wholly. So that is also a very good relief. And government is also investing money in the charging infrastructure. Some allocation has been made in the last PM e-drive scheme, which has been announced. And therefore, I expect that next year we will see more electric bus tenders coming in under both PM electric e-Seva scheme as well as e-drive scheme. So we will see more.
So expecting more electric bus tenders.
And this year also, currently one tender is already going on, for which already various companies have filed the bids, around 5,000 buses. And there might be another tender before the year end. And already there are around 15,000 buses are under delivery because which have already been allotted but still to be delivered. Till now, only around 11,000 electric buses have been delivered by all the companies put together. 15,000 electric buses are still under delivery, and 5,000 electric buses tender currently is going on. And then, of course, we are expecting either one more tender coming this year, or next year we will see a few tenders coming in. So therefore, slowly and steadily, you will see electric buses will become more and more popular, especially within the cities. And intercity also, there are some private players who are taking on the electric buses for the intercity routes. Electric trucks, the progress has not been that strong. there again, slowly and steadily, more companies are coming forward. So there you will see more and more progress happening in the electric side.
Okay, let me go across to Mr. Sai Giridhar at this point. Mr. Giridhar, thank you so much for joining us on Newscentre. Now, the month of November was not up to expectations as per the FADA statement. What's your outlook for the full year as we end? Do you expect 2025 to be better for the auto industry, specifically for passenger vehicles and two-wheelers?
So hi, thanks Parikshit for having me here today. And see, as far as 2024 is concerned, so we are still expecting a double-digit growth for the entire calendar year. If you are specifically talking about, if we take into account from Jan to November, so we already are having a 11% growth. To be specific, two-wheeler is a silver lining in the entire this thing. It's already shown a growth of close to 13 odd percent. Three-wheeler also is approximately a double-digit growth of approximately 12%. Passenger vehicle is a bit of a challenge. It's still in a single-digit growth, above 5%. But if you see the base from which these figures are coming as far as passenger vehicle is concerned, so we've seen last 3 years have been robust as far as passenger vehicle is concerned. So the base was very high if you compare from last previous years. So even if you consider the base, still we have a single-digit growth of approximately 5%, which overall we see is a decent and a good growth. This is what we had predicted at the start of the year, that passenger vehicle would be a single-digit growth, and overall the industry will grow by approximately double-digit. So that's what we are looking at. And if you talk about next year, probably next year would be a mixed bag. So it will be we'll be dependent on the economic conditions and on the new launches which are there. And as Mr. Aggarwal was talking about electrification, we've seen a lot of OEMs lining up to launch their electric range of vehicles, be it two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, even commercial vehicles. There are a lot of vehicles which are to be launched. I think the acceptation, how well the public accepts, the consumer accepts these electric vehicles, that's one factor to be seen. Infrastructure is also one of the major factors which might affect the going forward as far as electrification is concerned, because still we see there's a lot of lacking behind in infrastructure. In fact, in the PM e-drive, there's a lot of emphasis which is being done on the electrification, on the infrastructure on electrification is concerned. But overall, if you see, we see two-wheeler segment to be going even more stronger as far as 2025 is concerned. And passenger vehicle, to be specific, we again see a single-digit growth for the entire 2025.
Okay. Okay, so single-digit growth for the passenger vehicle sector and strong growth for the EV sector. Now, what's ailing the passenger vehicle sector right now? Because the Federation of Automobile Dealers have been speaking about a mismatch in inventory for several months now. If we were to ask you about the sentiment, is there an issue with sentiment on the ground as well? People not coming in to buy cars at the entry-level segment, from entry-level hatchbacks to sedans, maybe in the range of 4 to 10 lakhs for that matter?
So see, it's a mixed bag. You can't be specific as far as passenger vehicle is concerned. So if you talk about the base segment of passenger vehicle, the 4 lakh, 5 lakh segment. So with the new government regulations coming in, the prices have gone up too high, and with the stagnant of disposable income with the consumers, I think that's playing one of a spoil sport as far as the entry level segment is concerned. So probably more robust government policies and probably some help, so some subsidies on the entry level passenger segment will help the overall segment, I guess, going forward in 2025. So that can be one of the factors. And secondly, if you see, there was a lot of pent-up demand during COVID, and the way the entire segment rebounded for the last 3 years, So it's a very high base when you compare the figures. So I think even if there is a single digit growth in this segment, it should be considered a good and a healthy growth in the entire passenger vehicle segment.
Right. All right. We're going to take a short break at this point. We'll request both Mr. Aggarwal, Sai Giridhar also to stay with us. We will also be joined by Mr. BVR Subbu, board member of KPIT Technologies, and also the former president of Hyundai India. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. You're watching Motown Sentimeter. We still have the Sai Giridhar and Vinod Aggarwal, the Managing Director and CEO of Volvo Eicher Commercial Vehicles. We are now joined by BVR Subbu, former president of Hyundai Motor India. Mr. Subbu, if we were to ask you about electric vehicles specifically, strong growth in the year 2024. It's a good 29-30% uptick on a year-to-date basis. Good performance so far. Do you expect sales numbers to be significantly higher with new segments being added under the PM e-drive scheme?
Well, Parikshit, when you look at that 29% number, 30% number, break it up and look at the segments, So what you're really seeing is that two-wheelers have probably grown about 37% or something. You had three-wheelers growing at about 20%. But you've had cars as the laggards in the whole picture. And I think that is something that will continue even during 2025. What I personally expect to see in 2025 is probably a 100% growth in the two-wheeler business. Maybe it's, 15 to 20% growth in three-wheelers. And I think electric cars will, however, continue to be, just a footnote in the overall scheme of things. I mean, that's what they are today. I don't see them growing any, any further than that. Because you look at two-wheelers, what's happening is this, that there's been a huge localization has ensured new product configurations. It's ensured new price points. It's therefore ensured a bunch of new consumers coming in. Companies have gone across geographies. They've moved beyond the cities. Already, I would imagine in the cities, in the top 8-10 markets for two-wheelers, I would expect maybe 4 out of 10 scooters would probably be two-wheeler electric scooters today. What you would see happening is when motorcycles come. That's when the fun will really start.
Okay, and those motorcycles are coming from certain brands, and we are going to see a lot of activity in the electric three-wheeler space as well. Mr. Subbu, what do you think is still the missing part of the puzzle when it comes to electric vehicles? Are we right now on track to achieve the 30% electrification mark in the automobile sector by 2030?
Well, if you add apples and oranges and eggs put together, yes, perhaps, yes, you'll do that. I would expect to see, something like two-wheelers getting to close to 100% by 2030. I would expect three-wheeler commercial vehicles, for instance, getting to about 70% at least. In cars, I'm not so very certain. I don't expect to see cars that anything beyond 20% of the total, if that, because hybrids make a far more compelling choice in the Indian context, whether it's hybrids. You might have PHEVs coming in. I think that's really what you would see happening in the Indian car industry, at least. That's the way I see it. So yes, will you meet 30% on overall numbers? Yes, perhaps yes.
All right. And do you think more charging centers across the country, more charging points, could increase EV penetration?
If you see what's happening, if you say, I was looking at some statistics today that the amount of electricity consumed by chargers has gone up by 100% in the first 7 months of this year compared to the year before. So obviously there's this huge spurt in charging centers. The question is it enough, number one? And what is the quality of charging centers? I've written before that the quality of the power that's coming out of charging centers is suspect, and for a large part. And effectively what really could happen is it could be frying the electronics inside the vehicle. That could be a very serious problem. It is very well known that transients and surges, transients particularly, can actually rewrite your entire software on a vehicle. And you'll have to do significant resets and so on. So what is the quality of the power that's coming out? That's going to be the big question mark. And, I would go to the extent of saying that the government of India should probably look at charging very, very carefully from a national security perspective as well. I mean, you can have chargers coming in from China because that's anyone, some VC will fund, some trader will set up a real estate play in charging. But ultimately, what's going to happen is could be sitting with chargers with kill switches and backdoors, which could be a significant problem for national security itself, national grid security. I think the government should actually start thinking in terms of banning Chinese imports of charging the power hardware and power software in chargers and build a charging capability within the country. I think that's going to be very critical. I also believe that you need to do important point very quickly on things like battery cell chemistry and stuff like that. But that's another discussion. Well, charging infrastructure. I don't.
All right. I'm going to take some quick I'm going to take some closing remarks from all our panelists, Mr. Subbu, and I'll also come to you for a closing remark. Let me begin with Mr. Aggarwal. Mr. Aggarwal, as we end our program today, would you like to leave us with some thoughts on what could be certain hurdles or challenges before the auto industry next year, something that policymakers need to be aware of and cognizant of? Any stress that you see in the system?
I think we are very optimistic as far as the next year is concerned for the commercial vehicles. Hurdles, I don't think there will be much hurdles because it is the sentiments that is going to drive, and economy.
What about your
sure.
optimism, sir? What about your optimism of electrification in the commercial vehicle segment next year?
Buses, as I mentioned, we will see much more activity because already 15,000 buses are under delivery. They have still orders are there, but still to be delivered in the industry. Another 5,000 order is going to come. So around 20,000 buses are still to be delivered. And then next year we will get at least 2 or 3 more tenders. So therefore next year you can expect delivery of 25,000 buses, which will be a huge number, electric buses. And then of course going forward also there is a good scope for electric buses for within the city. And as I mentioned, intercity also the electric buses are going to become more and more popular. And electric trucks, you will see some movement, but not much.
Okay. Sai Giridhar, what do you think is your outlook for the EV segment specifically for next year?
So EV is bound to grow. There's no stopping for EVs. There can be few hurdles as far as EV is concerned, but it is bound to grow because our nation is a nation wherein people talk about kitna degi. We are more specific about the mileage. We're more specific about the overall maintenance cost of the vehicles which we drive. And EV gives you solution for all these questions that are being raised over the years as far as the ownership is concerned. The only issue probably what I see today is the price disparity between an electric and an ICE engine vehicles. Once that tipping point comes wherein we see the price of both these vehicles equal, you will see more and more people shifting towards EV. Probably then the question of range anxiety will no longer be there because it will be more economical for people to drive in those vehicles. So we'll see a major shift towards EV in times to come. And as far as passenger vehicle is concerned, I probably differ from Mr. BVR Subbu because I firmly believe that there would be more than 100% growth as far as calendar year 25 is concerned, as far as electric vehicle, because today the choice with consumers is very limited. If you talk about passenger vehicles, we've already seen in last couple of months.
I've completely run out of time. And we'll have to leave it there. But thank you so much for joining us with your views. And I'd like to thank Mr. Subbu and Mr. Aggarwal as well for their valuable perspective on CNBC-TV18. We wish you a very happy new year and hope 2025 is a great year for the Indian automobile industry.